As of early 2026, the global economy has decisively shifted from generative to agentic AI. Unlike the passive chatbots of 2024, today's AI systems, exemplified by Salesforce's Agentforce and advanced internal tools at Amazon and Walmart, possess bounded autonomy. They autonomously plan, execute, and iterate complex multi-step workflows in supply chain management, customer service, and code generation without human intervention. Major corporations have initiated aggressive restructuring. Amazon has cut over 30,000 roles since late 2025, largely tied to AI-driven efficiency. Salesforce and Dow Chemical have eliminated thousands of support and administrative positions. The displacement narrative is no longer theoretical. Reports from the World Economic Forum and Resume.org indicate that nearly 40% of companies anticipate replacing workers with AI by the end of 2026. This has triggered a pressure cooker of social unrest, with significant labor protests erupting in Berlin, TikTok moderators, the U.S. News Guild pickets, and India, Unite union strikes against TCS terminations. While AI-skilled workers command a 56% wage premium, entry-level hiring has collapsed, creating a missing rung in the corporate ladder for Gen Z, fueling youth unemployment and radicalization. The technological decoupling between the West and China has hardened into a silicon curtain. In early 2026, Chinese startup DeepSeek released a manifold constrained training method that drastically reduced compute costs, challenging U.S. dominance. However, a bombshell OpenAI memo to the U.S. Congress in February 2026 accused DeepSeek of adversarial distillation, effectively stealing intellectual property from U.S. models, and highlighted DeepSeek's integration with the People's Liberation Army (PLA) systems. The U.S. has tightened export controls on NVIDIA's H200 chips, closing loopholes used by Chinese firms. In retaliation, China has leveraged its dominance in rare earth minerals and gallium, threatening the supply chains vital for Western semiconductor manufacturing. Nations are scrambling to build sovereign AI clouds to avoid dependence on U.S. or Chinese tech. India has launched the $1.25 billion India AI mission, and Gulf sovereign wealth funds, Mubadala, PIF, deployed a record $66 billion in 2025 into AI infrastructure, pivoting away from traditional assets to secure their post-oil future. The war in Ukraine has evolved into the world's first AI-integrated conflict. The Test in Ukraine initiative has turned the front line into a continuous R&D lab for Western defense firms like Palantir and various drone manufacturers. Systems now feature terminal guidance autonomy, allowing drones to identify and strike targets without human input even when GPS is jammed. In the Middle East, AI targeting systems such as Lavender and Gospel are being used to generate target lists at superhuman speeds, raising profound ethical questions about the machine speed of modern warfare and the erosion of human oversight in lethal decision-making. Fully applicable as of mid-2026, the EU's regulation imposes strict compliance costs, effectively acting as a non-tariff trade barrier. While intended to ensure safety, critics argue it is stifling European innovation, prompting a brain drain of talent to the US and UAE. The world is fracturing into three regulatory blocks: the EU's rights-based model, the US's market-first approach, bolstered by deregulation pushes, and China's state control model. This fragmentation is creating antagonistic AI, where models trained on divergent national datasets reinforce mutually exclusive geopolitical worldviews. My analysis: the internet as a global commons is dead. It has been replaced by the splinter net of intelligence. We are witnessing the final collapse of the globalized technocratic order. The sovereign AI movement is not about national pride. It is a desperate defensive maneuver by mid-tier powers, India, France, UAE, to prevent becoming digital colonies of American hyperscalers or Chinese state-owned enterprises. The data shows that by 2030, any nation without its own AI stack, from chips to foundational models, will effectively cease to be a sovereign state, reduced instead to a client state paying rent for its own cognitive infrastructure. The U.S.-China dynamic has moved beyond competition to active sabotage. The OpenAI memo regarding DeepSeek is a smoking gun. It signals that the U.S. private sector is now fully integrated into the national security apparatus. We must stop viewing companies like Microsoft, Google, and Nvidia as commercial entities. In 2026, they are effectively state-adjacent actors functioning as the arsenal of democracy. Conversely, DeepSeek's integration with the PLA proves that China's strategy of military-civil fusion is complete. The next phase will likely involve data poisoning attacks, where state actors deliberately pollute the training data of rival nations to induce hallucinations or strategic errors in their AI models. The data OPEC forms. Countries rich in unique cultural or linguistic data, India, Brazil, Indonesia, will form a cartel, refusing to allow their data to be scraped by U.S. or Chinese models without massive royalties. The first algorithmic sanctions are imposed. The U.S. will block specific AI model updates to non-aligned nations, degrading their banking, medical, and logistics systems overnight. The agentic AI revolution of 2026 is fundamentally different from previous automation waves. It does not just replace muscle, robotics, or routine software. It replaces agency, the ability to make decisions. The labor protests in Berlin and India are the tremors before the earthquake. The corporate narrative of upskilling is a mathematically impossible lie for the majority of the workforce. You cannot upskill a customer service rep to become a prompt engineer when one engineer can do the work of 500 reps. We are entering a period analogous to the early industrial revolution's Engels pause, a decades-long stagnation in wage growth for the working class, despite skyrocketing capital returns. Just as the Luddites were maligned, but ultimately correct about their immediate displacement, the anti-AI movements of 2026 are rational actors fighting for survival. The missing rung for entry-level jobs creates a demographic time bomb. A generation of youth locked out of the economic ladder, prime recruits for radical political movements. The social contract is broken. If corporations like Amazon and Salesforce can execute agentic layoffs to boost margins while offloading the social cost of unemployment to the state, the current tax models are obsolete. We will see the forced implementation of robot taxes, or a compute-added tax, KAT, in the EU and potentially the UK by 2028. Without this, the wealth concentration by the AI renters, the owners of the models and compute, will make the Gilded Age look like a socialist paradise. The Test in Ukraine initiative is the most terrifying development of the decade. We have crossed the Rubicon of meaningful human control. When a drone in a jammed environment decides to strike a tank based on its own training data, the human is no longer in the loop. They are barely on the loop. The intelligentized warfare doctrine means that future conflicts will be decided in the first milliseconds by whichever side's algorithms can hallucinate a strategy faster than the opponent's. An AI flash crash in a geopolitical hotspot. An autonomous system will misinterpret a training exercise as an active launch, initiating a kinetic response before human commanders can intervene. The proliferation of slaughter bots. The technology currently tested in Ukraine will filter down to non-state actors. Cartels and terrorist groups will deploy cheap autonomous swarms for assassinations, making traditional VIP protection impossible. It is a total war economy where compute is the new oil, data is the new ammunition, and the citizens are merely collateral damage in the race for cognitive supremacy. The only winning move for smaller nations is to federate or become a fortress. For individuals, the only safety lies in owning the equity of the machines that replace them. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.